it just felt enormously rewarding as a young person to be listening to something like Nas or like Lauryn Hill and be like, wow, in New York City alone, just up the street in Queens or just up the street in Harlem, people are living a completely different life than I'm living as this kindergartner here in Manhattan. And music has that potential to teach us about somebody else's walk of life. Music has that potential to show us what it means to have empathy, you know, to really be in the mindset of what somebody is going through. And of course, music has fueled movements around the world. We saw Black Lives Matter this year was enormously fueled by the music that we listened to. So I understood that as a young person intuitively. You know, through my life, going through these different private schools, you know, going to Georgetown, going to Harvard, what was consistently taught was, what's your 5-year plan? What's your 10-year plan? You know, I'd go to my high school, I'd go to my college, and a guidance counselor, you know, like life counselor, whatever it is. And they'd be like, okay, you know, like, what's the 10-year career plan? This kind of thing. And I'd be like, I don't even know what I'm having for lunch today. Like, how could you possibly ask an 18-year-old that question? And yet this is such a normal thing that we do, which is planning for these hypothetical futures. And everybody else participates in it, you know, and everybody else around me would show up ready to sort of say what they're going to do with their life and how their major fit in and how they're going to med school and this and that. And it just never worked for me. So I always would feel like I'm subpar or I'm not delivering in the way that other people are. And yet I had good grades, and yet I felt successful in my life. And yet, you know, there was this constant tension. In my life, what I've learned thus far, and I'll share a little bit more about my story, but, you know, if you ask 18-year-old Kiran what it is that she wants with her life in 10 years at 28, and I'm 32 now, there's no way she would say, oh yeah, I want to be so good at the drums, like I can tour with Oprah on a stadium tour. Like she just wouldn't think that way. There's no way. Oprah's on television, I'm here doing my homework. It doesn't, my brain wouldn't have even gone to that space. And so what's so interesting about our culture is that so often we're trying to protect kids and protect each other and plan for these hypothetical futures. And yet I find that actually limits the human potential. That actually limits what each of us are so vividly, vastly capable of. Every day we have the chance to change our lives. Every day we have the chance to evolve. And every day we have the chance to remove people from our lives and things from our lives that don't encourage that evolution and that growth. The ability to come tomorrow and say, oh yeah, this is how I dress. And then the next day to come and say, oh, now I dress completely differently. And maybe one day I choose for my romantic partners to be men. One day we choose for our romantic partners to be a different gender. You know, this kind of thing is liberating. And guilt is such a wasted emotion. It's like, if someone's trying to make somebody else feel guilty, they're coming from a place of a wound. You know, there's so many things that I feel wounded from, and I don't get on a stage and I don't speak about those things until a wound is healed. You cannot be on a stage yelling. You can't be on a stage upset and simultaneously trying to teach. You have to privately heal those wounds. You have to work on yourself. You have to say, why does this thing hurt me so much? And heal it. Then you can educate. Then you can speak from the head space instead of the wounded emotional space. So that's another thing that I've learned. When something is triggering me and I find myself getting defensive, I do disengage. It's the right thing to do, because trying to fight with somebody from a place of emotion, they're never going to hear you. So then it becomes right versus wrong, me versus you. If it comes from a place of like, no, I've hashed out these emotions. I've spent time thinking about these issues for a really long time, and I'm going to teach you something. And if you don't want to learn that thing, my feelings are not hurt because I'm healed. You know, Georgetown is a school in Washington, D.C. Obama was in the White House. It was a nice time to be in D.C. for sure. And my dad had this thing, like, you got to do the mayor's office internship, you know? So I did it, and I got into the program. I'm doing this mayor's office internship. One day I'm leaving my internship. I was so bored of that internship. I would be on Facebook all day. You know, it's so ironic how that's the thing that looks good on the resume, but the quality of the work was so subpar. I'm leaving the mayor's office in DC to go back to campus, do my homework, whatever. There's a huge protest outside the mayor's office, huge protest. And they're protesting the shutdown of a homeless shelter because it's so clear that the mayor is shutting down this homeless shelter to make room for condominiums, and he's pocketing a lot of the money as long as he approves the removal of this homeless shelter. And in that moment, I was like, I feel like I'm on the wrong side of this historical line. Like, I don't want to be with the corrupt guy just so that I have a bougie looking resume. No, I want to be with the drummers. Like, I want to be with the actors. I want to be on the right side of history. Like, so I take off my internship badge and I like put it in my pocket and just kind of like go around, and I join the drummers. And I start protesting this mayor that's given me an internship, because what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. And it's so obvious, especially in a city like DC where there's so much corruption rampant throughout our capital. By the time I was a senior at Georgetown, that same lounge had given me an opportunity to have my own show drumming alongside the DJ. It was the first time in my life I had been paid to play drums. Like, in the first time in my life where someone was like, I want to give you money to play your little drums. Like, it was such a moment. It was every Sunday, me and a DJ. I would play congas and the DJ would spin, and I'd be paid $100. And I was just in heaven. I was just so happy. I was so happy. And I share that moment because those years following my time at Georgetown ended up being such a happier time for me, because in me doing what it is that I enjoy, which is my activism, which is my drumming, I was surrounded by people who I also loved. I was surrounded by people who shared my same value system. I was energized by feeling seen by that community and then also participating in that community. And that matters. As human beings, we have to feel valued, desired, and also that the thing that we enjoy doing is a gift to somebody else. You know, I feel like my whole life I would play drums and people would be like, kind of whatever, but what are you really doing with your life? It felt so validating to be in a space where people were like, oh my God, I can't wait to go and see Kiran play on Sunday. She lights up the room when she plays. She loves to play drums, you know? That's what the human experience is about. Me shining in my power makes you happy, and you shining in your power makes me happy.